Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours Saturday. We're delighted to have you here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Today's show will be a double dose of Q&A on topics surrounding media production, so if you have a bunch of questions, today is your day. Get those questions into us via Makana, where you can vote them up and down. That helps us drive the discussion. If you're new to the show, not yet in Makana, you can still participate. Just submit your questions to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. You can also get there by scanning the QR code, which is right over here on the screen. And once you're there, you can submit your questions anytime, 24/7. Get your question out of your head and in front of the experts. That's askofficehour.global. Got a lot of show to get to, so let's dive into our first question. Courtney?
Thank you, CJ. First one comes in from our friend Guy Cochran in Seattle, and he says, how do you handle mixing audio for the house PA system versus simultaneously for a live stream broadcast? Do you use an entire second audio mixer and engineer, or do you do it all in one?
You go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, well, the way that I do it is on the projects that I work on. Normally, it's not like high-end projects, and we use like a second aux mix out of the mixer. So we do adjustments on there, and then the operator has to control both mixes, both for the house and for the stream. But what you can also do is, if you have like a separate room or something, or even noise cancellation headphones, then you can put them on. The one person can get an iPad and control the stream mix from the iPad. The more professional solution would, of course, be having two separate mixers. But that's you need people, and it's cost. Another thing that I just want to mention real quick is that there's this here guy on YouTube, is Bellist Media. He does this here mix in Reaper, so he brings all the channels into his Reaper via Dante and does the mix there. I'll post a link in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. Mitchell?
Yeah, I agree with Samuel. I think it makes sense to do it with two mixers, two engineers. Anytime I've doubled up, that the engineer was really good and promised that he can make it happen. Of course, somehow, some way, he pushed the wrong button and I lost my live stream. So from that point forward, it was always two mixers, two engineers, one responsible for the front of house and the other doing a live stream.
Chris?
Yeah, there's always, what ends up happening when you dump too much stuff on one person is one thing is going to fall through the cracks. You know, like you roll the video, playback, whatever, and oh yeah, I forgot to pot that thing up or send it up. The very best way, as Samuel said, is to have all your audio sources first go through a mic splitter. There's different ways to do it in the digital world, I'm sure. Excuse me, in the old analog world, you had a big old copper box on the stage, and everything would plug in there, and then there'd be literally two mass connectors. One would go to front of house, and one would go to either the monitor mixer, or quite often, if you really have the money, as Samuel mentioned, it's going to go sometimes out of the facility to a truck outside, because obviously the person doing the live stream mix doesn't have to be in the room. And as Samuel mentioned with the noise canceling headphones, sometimes being in the room is deceptive, because what you think you're listening to is actually a combination of what you're mixing and what's naturally in the room. So if you can, that person ideally is completely separated from the rest of the audio sources.
Alex?
We've done it a lot of different ways. It depends on the complexity of the show and the stature of the show. Like, how big is the show, how complex is the show, and how good is your engineer? So we have a handful of engineers. Brian Maddox, that I've talked about in the past, has done a lot of them where he does both mixes at the same time, using a separate mix bus to basically mix for both of them. There are some advantages. The cues are a little quicker, a little bit more timed, because they're both coming from the same person. But you have to have an exceptionally good engineer to do a remotely complex thing. And very quickly, if you have lots of cues, you have to move past that and go to two mixers and have one person in the room, one person, as was mentioned before, not in the room. Typically, it can be somewhere else in the building. Oftentimes for us, it was in another location, in a production truck outside or something like that. But separating those out makes sense. It is you can do it. I mean, on a really simple one with a handful of people sitting around, you can do something where you do both mixes, but you really can't do anything that is complicated or high profile with the same mixer and engineer. So it just depends on how, obviously, your budget. You sometimes you just have to do what you can do with it. But when given our own, we try to do an entirely separate switch as well as the mix. So we want, the switcher. A lot of times we're taking the iMag cut that's coming from from them, and then adding wide shots and adding all the other graphics and cut-ins and so on and so forth, because our needs are different from the house. So it's the same thing. Video and audio, we try to do it with a completely separate team for larger profile events. But for the smaller ones or medium-sized ones, it's pretty common for us to have one person if it's just a matter of how many cues and how complex that pipeline gets. We usually share. In the past, if we have time, we shared with Dante. To go back and forth. Dante and Maddie both can exhibit some clocking errors when you have two different systems trying to talk to it. And so you have to have one of them do that. Like one of them's got to be the source of truth, or you use an analog hitch to get between the two so that you can make sure that you're not trying to clock them. So something to think about.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Khaled Alamaja. Excuse me for butchering your name there, from Hassa, Saudi Arabia. Says, has anyone seen this Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K 6K mod kit? As a member of the Office Hours community, I thought it would be interesting to share this, and he has a link in there.
Yeah, I took a look at this one just online. It looks like what they've been able to do is they actually took a 6K, and then they went ahead and they put a V-mount on the back of it, and then they moved the screen on the back over to the top so that you had kind of an external viewfinder. I liked it in concept. I'd be terrified to take my camera and rip it apart. But depending on how adventurous you are, Alex.
Yeah, most of us just simply. Modding a camera is a big deal. Get the camera that you want and how you're going to use it. I would say I wouldn't mod a camera, but we build rigs around it all the time. You'll see every camera that I have, I get a small rig cage for it. And that's because it's really common for us to just take a camera and start building stuff around it. But there's no reason, in my opinion, to be permanent about it. Build out what you want. You build out the rig that you want around the camera that you have. But I wouldn't, when people start digging into that process, I usually don't think it's a great idea. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Next question.
Definitely void your warranty as well. Douglas Carmichael comes in with the next question. When migrating to a new Mac in the studio, do you use Migration Assistant from the old Mac to the new Mac, or a clean install of everything?
Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, the Migration Assistant sounds like a great idea, but in general, you'd end up causing some problems, particularly if you had problems on that Mac and you're going to a new one. You move those problems over to the new Mac. So always do a clean install whenever you have the opportunity.
Chris?
And of course, I'm the one who says, just use the Migration Assistant. I will tell you, I've done both. The current editor that I just got a year and a half ago, an Ultra Studio thing. And this one, I'm doing a clean install. And it's a pain. It is absolutely a pain. I will tell you that I firmly believe that the Migration Assistant was written by somebody inside Apple, because at Apple, they don't have any big fancy IT department when, employee number 10,372 gets a new computer where he can go, can you move all my stuff to my new computer? They make the employees do that stuff. And so I think that the Migration Assistant was written for that reason. And I will tell you, I've used Migration Assistant many, many, many times. Never had a problem. Sometimes
Alex?
I do it from scratch.
I've never migrated, ever. I never will. I open up a computer, I install the new software, and I slowly add what I need as I need it. It also keeps me from just having a bunch of stuff in there because I had it in there. So I reinstall things as I need them. I bring them in. The only thing I do, I will admit, for a lot of my computers, I'll jump into the App Store and just go install everything, everything that's in the App Store. So I do allow that to go ahead and then I go away somewhere, and then it just puts everything on it. I have to admit that experience has had me become less and less open to apps that aren't in the App Store. So if they're less than $100 and they're not in the App Store, I'm kind of like, really? like it's, and so they have to be really special, like Loopback or something like that for me to install it. It needs to be installed outside of that. But people who just build things that are not in the App Store for whatever reason, I generally won't install those anymore because it's too hard to upgrade from my perspective from one computer to the next.
Courtney?
Sorry, sometimes my mouse gets lost on these days. Yeah, for Macintosh, I would always, and for Windows also, I do tons of Windows machines here. And there's probably something similar on the Macintosh. But there's aggregators that, that you can load on your machine that will normalize this. So you go and get a new machine. You don't use the migration assistant. But there are programs out there that you have checkboxes for all the free software that's out there that is available that you like to have on every machine. You just check all the little checkboxes and you save that setup. And then when you get a new machine, you just run that software, which goes out on the internet, pulls in the latest versions of all that software into your machine and sets it up. And that way you don't have a legacy of stuff that was installed and never used or never uninstalled, which is the cruft that makes your machine slow down over time. So yeah, I also agree with everyone else. Do a clean install. Don't migrate everything because you're going to migrate all the bad stuff as well as the good stuff.
Samuel?
Yeah. What I think what Courtney was mentioning, at least on Windows, that's Ninty, and you can download a whole bunch of applications. You just choose what you use. So I use that for all my Windows installs. I'm mostly on Windows.
One more thing that I'll throw in on setting up a machine from scratch. If you are not scared of the command line and you're okay to open up your Mac terminal, check out Homebrew as a package manager, brew.sh. That makes it really easy to install a lot of different applications without having to run all over the internet to find your installers. Next question.
Next one comes in from Abby Lopez in San Antonio, Texas, my own hometown. What is the recovery tool or service recommended to recover footage on an SD card or SD cards? Is there any buy once, cry once? I've used Recuva, clever spelling, software, and only the free version, and only had about a 20% success rate.
Alex?
Yeah, so one thing is I don't know, when you see something only free, if it's just a free version, it might be okay, but if you see something only free, never put that on your computer, especially because it's going to ask for permissions to do things with your drive, and then it may install a lot of bad things. So be very, very, very careful about it. I will not put recovery data on there without a pretty large brand connected to it. The one that I've used in the past, and I don't know if it's the perfect one, I don't know if it fixes everything, but it fixed my problem, is Recover It by Wondershare. So Wondershare makes it if you're on the Mac. I'm not sure if it's cross-platform or not, but Wondershare has Recover It has been. Basically what I did is I deleted a SD card. Then I needed to get that data back, and as soon as you start writing on the card, you're in trouble. So, but if you haven't written anything, all it's done is tag them. It will come back as a jumbled mess of files. It's not going to be the way you left it, but it does get. I was successful at getting those files back on that software. I don't do it very often. I probably only lost data on an SD card 2 or 3 times in my life, but when I did, that's what I ended up using.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I kind of see those kind of problems as take the SD card and throw it over your shoulder. Say goodbye to it.
Yeah, sometimes you can't. like you go out and you shoot. Like for me, I shot, stuff that I needed. And I mean, there's times when you definitely need to have you captured something and there'll be you won't be able to go back and do it. So you go through the trouble to go, to find these things and try to get the data out. You got to at least make a shot at it because otherwise it's going to be expensive thing to go back to a client and say you didn't have the footage. So especially when it's one of 6 spherical cameras. So anyway, yeah, you can't do that most of the time. Yeah.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Mathieu Lecomte in Oakland. He says, when the panel does audio check, the reading is in LUFFs. How does this compare to decibels? And does the MixPre show this?
Mitchell?
Call me old school, but I like dB because for me it feels more precise. A dB reading is a electrical calculation that moves the controls where they have to go based on an electrical signal that's in there and how much of it's there. LUFFs are a little more psychoacoustic. They relate to the loudness that's perceived by the human. So loudness is always a combination of actually a ratio of RMS versus the peak level. The closer they get together, the louder they get. So dBs don't do that. They give you volume, but they don't give you loudness. And ironically, after everything I just said, 1 dB is generally the smallest amount of difference that the human ear can perceive. At least that's what I've heard from the old-time engineers. They would say, well, 1 dB is the smallest amount of difference you can hear.
Yeah.
Alex?
Okay. So the LUFFs are something that it's perceptual loudness. So it's not designed around electrical loudness, and the MixPre cannot do that. We do it here because it gives us a solid, true rating of that. Just looking at what the levels aren't going to tell us really the perceptual loudness in a sampled time than over time. So it's not just a momentary thing. So we think that LUFFs are superior, and that we're going to get a better averaging out of everyone and making sure that everyone is truly from how you perceive it to be similar and the same. But you can't get that. It doesn't normally exist on the MixPre, which is just telling you exactly what it's getting electrically.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Colin McCorkle in Barnesmouth, Leeds. He says, we aren't able to get the IEEE docs and amp teach ourselves, but have been told to look at building an isolated ground mesh for our data centers, studios, and amp AV rooms to work well. Please explain this network and amp, and how do you build it so we can think of our next steps?
And we were talking a little bit about these isolated ground meshes yesterday. So this is a QR code probably from around that time. But Alex, help us out.
You're going to hire someone that's specialized in that area. You don't need to read the docs. Bring in a specialist to do this. This is electricity, and it is complex. And you can do some research on it on the web, and you can do some other things like that. But this is going to be something that you want to bring somebody in, to figure out if you want to bring in someone who not only is an electrician and an electrical engineer, but also someone who really understands it. When you're doing it at this level, you really need somebody who's going to design this for you in a rational way, and you can read up on things. You can ask ChatGPT about it. You can kind of think about all those things, but I wouldn't make any designs without a certified partner that's going to come in and help you make that happen.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Zach Jeffries in Spokane, Washington. He says, I've been noticing a brightness jump when switching office hours panelists. I've checked my monitors, and it's replicated across a TV and multiple Apple devices and monitors when viewed on YouTube. And he has an example. I'll link to an example.
Mitchell?
I've seen it. I yield the rest of my answer to Mr. Alex Lindsay.
Mr. Alex Lindsay?
First time I saw it was when you posted that thing. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. Well, I mean, obviously there's some folks in the dev team that are probably looking at what you just posted. Thank you so much for pointing it out. But yeah, I'm not sure where that is. I'm not sure where that's coming from. So that but it is a right. It's what's interesting is not as it edits, it's right after it edits. There's a little flash that may have. I don't know if it's been that. We'll have to go back and look at when it started. We're constantly changing the system, so the system may have something we changed may have introduced something. So Mickey says that it's an issue with Zoom ISO, and it's been known for a few weeks. so anyway, so there you go. So we're working through it, but thanks for pointing it out, and we will. We're working with the team to to figure out those things. Usually within a couple weeks, especially if it's a bug, we find a lot of the bugs because we use most of the software harder than anybody else in the world. So we run into things that people may not see immediately. So we'll keep on looking at it, and we'll let you know when we have it fixed, or just keep watching and you let us know when we have it fixed. Thanks.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was, now that Mickey has chimed in, I'll withdraw my question. I was just going to ask if we do any proc amp processing on the back end, or if Zoom does it all, but apparently Zoom's doing it all. And
that's why I was sure. That's why I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, I don't know, because I know that we were talking about putting some proc amps in, some FS HDRs, and I don't think that they're in the pipeline yet, but I wasn't sure. So I was like, oh, maybe it is something that we just did, but it sounds like it's something that needs to be worked on. So we're working on it.
Next question.
Comes from Douglas Carmichael, and he says, has anyone had experience with a hardware-based DAW controllers like the Softube Console 1 mixing system or SSL 360? And he has a link.
Alex?
Yeah, they work well. I mean, I haven't had experience with these ones specifically, but we do use a lot of software. I mean, hardware controls for software for DAWs in general, and it makes a huge difference. So this one I don't have experience with, but what I will say is that having hardware, whether it's a little Stream Deck or whether it's a more controlled interface, it gives you a lot more control. Like, it's not the same as using the software. Clickety clicks, being able to grab things, and it's not just speed; it's the organic nature of being able to grab things and make the adjustments very fast. The software can do a lot of those things, but can you get to them fast enough? And with any project, you don't really finish it; you just run out of time. So if you have something that makes you 10 times faster or 100 times faster to do something, you're going to build a better product. So I would say hardware interfaces, whether they're Avid's hardware interfaces or somebody else's hardware interfaces or other things like that, are critical to doing high quality mixes.
And when you're doing something live, there's a significant reduction in cognitive load when you can go and feel something, as opposed to needing to where is this, and let me find my mouse and move to a different screen.
Well, and even if you're doing something in post, even if you're stopping and starting and everything else, being able to just grab onto all the things you need, hitting stop, and then being able to listen to it and make the adjustments, it's just having all those dials in place. And there's lots of different ones. There's very little ones. There's loop decks, and there's all kinds of other that are smaller. But when you start doing real productions, I mean, I work in a facility in LA, and I think he's got 128 sliders, the faders there, and with all the controls and everything else all built into it. And they've got big roller chairs they roll back and forth between them, and that's all to run Pro Tools. It's just a piece of software, but it really makes a massive difference. And they can have multiple people working on the same thing. It's super important.
Next question.
Next one comes in from our old friend Paul Wallace, formerly of Austin, now in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And he says, what is a great all-in-one remote to replace the subpar Model RMF-TX810U Sony remote for a Sony XR-65A80L TV?
Go ahead, Alex.
And TV.
I can't tell you what everybody does. I'll tell you how I solve the remote problem is that I plug an Apple TV into my Sony, and then I just use the Apple TV. I get the Sony to where I want it, and then I never look back. I never do anything else. I never, I don't. All I know how to do on at home is turn my TV on. Like, I just turn it on, and then everything I do is inside of my Apple TV. This whole dealing with controllers and doing stuff like that I haven't done that for maybe a decade. So I know I'm not answering your question, but I don't want to raise my hand. So anyways, that's how I do it is to not think about it anymore.
And Courtney?
Yeah, I hate these new type of remotes. This is the one he's talking about. And you'll notice there's no number pad on it. This is the thing I hate because I use an antenna-based TVs on a lot of my other, shop TV, etc. And so, I'll want to tune to, I have 150 channels here in LA to tune to. And the only way that those remotes work is they have an on-screen grid, and you have to go down, 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 down to get to the channel that you want. I have tried universal remotes, check into Philips, makes a whole line of multi-unit remotes that work with five different pieces of audio or video gear. And look for one that has learning built into it. Because if you have one that has learning built into it, you can take it, and a lot of times they'll have the pre-built codes for Sony TVs, let's say. And so you will be able to, direct punch the channel number in and have it go to it immediately if you're tuning with the tuner on the Sony itself. But for the streaming stuff, you got to work off of a guide. And I find that then if you have a learning remote, you can program it from the old remote.
Go ahead, Chris.
Couple of follow-up questions. Courtney, are you saying you have 154 over-the-air channels to choose from?
Yes, sir.
That's spectacular. And then Alex, right? And then Alex, I'm curious, do you feel, and this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, because I think that quite often we wrestle with technology more than benefit from technology. And I think that I know for myself, there's a lot of things where I look at other stuff that I don't use. I'm like, I don't really need that. I'm okay. I'm okay not having everything for having the things that I have be easy. Do you ever feel like you're missing out because you only use the Apple TV?
No. I guess what I would say is that I subscribe. Not everyone does. That your mind can only make so many good decisions a day. Like that it is, it's a muscle, and that you can run it out. If you pay attention to everything all the time, you're not going to necessarily have the mind space to do the right thing and make the right decisions. And so a lot of anything that doesn't, I spend a lot of energy on things that I care about, and some of them are not necessarily work related. I spend a lot of money figuring out how to do a latte for my wife, like a lot of. I watch videos on it, and so I spend a lot of energy on how I make my breakfast or how I do other things. But a lot of things that I do, anything that I don't think is important or I'm not interested in, my goal is to minimize the complexity of it completely, so that there's no decision process there. I don't want to fill up my time, my brain time, trying to research how to do that, and I don't want to think about it when I'm doing it. And I just, I get as much content as I need. I have YouTube TV, I have Apple, Amazon, whatever. I can get, I don't need any more than that. And if I don't, I'm on my phone and I'm watching, TikTok or whatever that is. But the point is that I have plenty of content, more content than I should watch anyway. I was up late last night watching Recuva with my son. I watched too many episodes at one time. So there's a lot of things in my life that I try to minimize, like just how do I minimize that out? And I think I think a lot of times I think that people, for instance, that use Android phones are way geekier than people who use iPhones, because people who use iPhones just want it to work. They just want to open up and just do the thing. I don't want to figure it out. And that's very much how I am about a lot of things in my life, is I don't want to figure this out, or how can we hire someone to do that? Like how do I not work on that, because I get paid to think, and I need to clear my space for thinking all the time, because that's the only thing that matters. And that's the only thing that keeps me employed, is being able to think. And so anything that takes away thought time to do something, I'm pretty resistant to, unless it's something I really care about.
Another thing that a lot of us talk about with TVs in this group is the first thing you do is you go in the menu and you turn off dynamic contrast, and you turn off motion smoothing, and you turn off anything that looks like it says smart or intelligent or this or that. If you're going to use a device remote to control your TV, the one thing you don't want to turn off is CEC, the Consumer Electronic Control, or I've seen it called Smart Link one time. That's the piece that when you touch your Apple remote, it turns your actual television on, and it lets you turn the volume up and down. And I know it seems crazy, but I think it's just awesome that I can hit a button on my remote and it turns the projector on, switches the receiver to the right setting, and then I can control the volume up and down.
Interesting.
It'll turn the TV on and off? Or it'll turn the TV on?
When you hold the power button on the Apple remote, it will turn the projector and downstairs the TV on and off. So it's like I don't even know where the other remote is.
So the Apple remote already does the volume, and And on the new silver remote, it actually will turn it off. You're saying if I press it and hold, it'll turn it on?
If you just touch it, any button will turn it on. If you press and hold, it'll turn it off. But
okay, we've lost him. Okay,
yeah,
we can
that's
move
okay.
on.
But it's actually pretty smart. Courtney, you had something to throw in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the CEC, it'll do that with almost all streaming devices. It does it with my Fire TVs, my Chromecasts, my, whatever, besides the Apple TV as well. It basically sends the control signals over the HDMI cable to the TV, and the TV takes those control signals and turns itself on and switches itself to that HDMI input at that time. Then it takes the control signals that come from that remote and use that to operate the TV. The problem has come about because almost all TVs are smart TVs now, and they want you to use all their streaming apps built into the TV, which are usually quite slow because the processor in that TV is overworked. And so I'd rather use I'd rather use streaming apps that come in on my Fire TV or Apple TV or whatever outside streamer that comes in over HDMI than the ones that are built into the TV. So this is why the remotes look like a Roku remote with just up, down, left, right, and volume up and volume down. And because they take a lot of money from those little buttons that are on the bottom that are paid to go to Netflix, Disney, Amazon Prime. All those pay a lot of money to Sony, and that's why the price of the television set is so low.
All right. Just a quick reminder, your questions do drive our show, so submit them to us through Makana or by visiting askofficehours.global. You can scan the QR code that shows up on the screen from time to time, or just type askofficehours.global into your browser. If you are in Makana, don't forget to vote on questions. That helps us tailor the show around your interest, and we do appreciate it. Let's go ahead. Next question.
Next one comes in from Albie Lopez down in San Antonio, Texas. He says, when using Sony FR7s, what is the best way to record audio on SD cards for backup? If the audio is mixed from a PA system separately and feeding to another mixer that is handling the live stream audio. Thank you.
Samuel?
Yeah, well, you can input the audio into the FR7. It's got a 5-pin XLR, so what you need is a adapter and then you can bring two channels in, two channels into the FR7. But what you have to do, you have to set it to line level and turn off phantom power, and then you can do an aux output from your mixer into the camera and record it that way. But what I would probably think about is doing like a dual system, like you have like either MixPre or a Zoom recorder, and record your audio on a separate device, so you don't have to run cable to your camera. The other thing that you can do, depending on what kind of event it is, but if it's like a small event, then what I've done is put just like a small portable recorder in the front, like a Zoom H1. So I have a backup recording. If the audio should fail, then I can at least pull it off there. Won't be like a good recording, but it will be better than nothing.
Alex?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that what you want to do is just have audio in there to sync. So you're just trying to put something in the camera so that you can sync audio later coming from your mixer. So you'll have your mixer go out, and you can do something. You can do an aux out. You can even do Dante. So you can have Dante run into there, do exactly what Samuel said, which is do the 5-pin to 2 XLRs. But those XLRs, or even one of those XLRs, is just an ordinate, converter from Ethernet to XLR, so that you can just just pump something into it, and it's really there just for sync, just so you can resync your cameras and to make sure that they're going back. Of course, you can use timecode and other things like that, but this is a way for you to just have audio in there as a safety. What you're going to record the rest of your show on, we use Jokos. So a Joko is a hardware Dante interface. It has other interfaces, but we use Dante. That'll record all of that to your SD card or whatever. But it's a great way that's really reliable. Also, Boom Recorder on the software. A lot of times we use both of those together. We've had one instance where the Boom Recorder trashed everything, so we don't use it by itself. So anyway, and we don't use Boom Recorder on M1 Max. We still use them on Intels because of that little issue. So anyway, so Boom Recorder is a software-based Dante recorder, and then of course there is the Sound Devices used to make this incredible. We still rent it at times, the 970, I believe, and it is it will take all of those Dante channels and record them straight to drive as well. So you can record all the tracks, and that's what you want to think about: is how do I record all the tracks? Typically we want them pre-fade with sometimes post-fade as well, and sometimes just the program. Well, you always want the program, and then you're just sending that safety out to the camera so that you can match it back.
Mitchell?
Yeah, the FR7 records on CF Express. It's got 4 audio channels. They're digital. If you use an external, believe it or not, I still pull out my old 240 picks and get a just in case.
But that's only a couple channels. Yeah, but you can do it.
That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Colin McCorkle.
I think you're one ahead.
Oh, sorry, I skipped one. Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri. To view office hours on Sundays, will there be a new breakout room, or should we view from the after hours main room?
Go ahead, Alex.
Right now, you should do your best to watch it on in the actual event. So you want to go to the webinar or not the webinar, but the link that we put out there. That is the link to Sunday. I would get there early. It is filling up, and we're trying to figure out. It's a funny problem. I can't find the interface on Zoom that will allow me to increase the number of people in the session. So we're going to reach out. We're reaching out to Zoom to talk to them. I'm happy to pay for it. I just can't find the actual button. When you look at Zoom sessions, it shows you other subscription levels like 100, 500, 1,000 or whatever. There's just no button to push it. And no price. It's priceless. And I guess you have to, I think that I might have to cancel what I have and then start up again so that I don't know what's going on here. So anyway, so we are trying to increase the capacity, but our request is if you go in, don't leave because you've taken a seat no matter what. And we do have a cap at 100. It really ends up being about 85 or 90 because some people come and go. So we are working on increasing that. But we're not broadcasting into breakout rooms for Sunday. We're really trying to have this. We're going through this trouble so that we can figure out this process. I do believe it works in the radio app. So if you want to listen to it, you can open up the radio app. They're in Discord under the Alex announcements. You'll see a link to the beta for that, and you can download the radio app and listen to it there. And you'll be getting a relatively low latency feed from that radio app. So you can use it there. You can ask questions there also. So it's a pretty good solution for that. But we're not going to be pushing it back into the after hours system as we move forward. So we're just trying to we're in a transition mode, and there's no permanent thing here. We're just making. We're trying to have Sunday be really kind of its own island and allow us to make sure that we have a solid backup that we can use throughout if anything happens. And so by doing that, it's forcing us to run up against a couple sharp edges of things that don't work the way we thought they would. And so anyway, so we're working on it. We should in the next week. I'm close, but I'll be talking to Zoom next week to try to figure out if they can show me where the button is because I don't know where it is.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Bournemouth Leeds from Colin McCorkle. He says, what is True One and why should we buy it or use it? It was recommended for some things, but don't understand why.
Alex? I
don't know. I don't say that very often, but I tried to search to kind of remind myself of that process. It can be done from an electrical perspective, but I was like, I don't know enough about this to try to give you an answer. So I'm going to let Courtney give a shot.
I don't know. I had to look up what True One was. This was probably a holdover from our power discussion yesterday, because the one thing I did find is this True One Power Con adapter, which is a new trick.
And Mickey pointed out that it's a power connector developed by Neutrik.
Yeah. And, you should use it if that is what the main connector is on your equipment, because you may have to adapt to it to get power in from wherever you are. It's a power interconnect of some sort.
I've definitely seen that connector. I just didn't know it was called a True One. So anyway, but Mickey said that it provides a secure locking connector for AC power. So there you go.
the True One connector.
Now we're going to all use them. We're going to wire everything. I went from not knowing what it is to I'm going to rip off all of my my Edison plugs and just put True Ones in. I'm just going to put it everywhere in the house. My wife will be like, "What happened? Like, why do I?" Like, you don't understand. This is the True One.
Yeah. Next question.
Next one comes in from Mathieu Comte in Oakland. He says, I see Courtney prints many little helpful things. What is the learning curve like for a newbie 3D printer?
Alex?
It's so low. Don't be afraid of it. No matter almost any printer that you get out there, I use the Cheedy printer myself. It's enclosed, which I liked. I have a cat, and the idea of having an open printer, I didn't think would survive. And I just, for some reason, I want it to be enclosed. So I have a Cheedy. It's a big one, and the reason I want to jump in and just say it's not that hard is because it came in a box and I looked at it and I was like, oh, I'll get around to it. It sat there for months while I was busy and doing other things, thinking that this gets back into what Chris and I were talking about. This is going to suck up a lot of my time. So I have to put it in a space where I can do that. And I didn't have time for a while. And then I turned it on and I ran it and I was like, oh my gosh, this was so easy. Like I had something printing in like 20 minutes after I turned it on. So the Cheedy is spelled QIDI, but there are many anchors making ones that are really easy. Dremel makes them now. Courtney has some Prusas are pretty popular, but I'm sure Courtney has better some other suggestions than from the ones I just listed.
Yeah, Courtney?
Yeah, I like for a starter, you don't want to spend too much money. So I recommend the new one from Creality, well, one of the many that they have. And it's very confusing. The Ender 3 V3 SE. And here it is. It's $219. You can assemble it. It comes flat packed, but don't go crazy because you just have to plug in 2 cables and put 6 screws in to secure this upright gantry that goes on the base here. And you'll be up and printing in about 30 minutes. From receiving it. So it's very easy to use. And there's tons, literally thousands and thousands of hours on setting up and printing your first print on these 3D printers. And if you're going to create your 3D objects from scratch, there's also Thingiverse, which is a source for free downloads of many, many models. A lot of utilitarian stuff, connectors, cases, organizers, a variety of things. I mean, and I use Tinkercad, which is freely available from Autodesk. You log into it. It's web-based. These are a lot of little utility things that I've designed, little problem solvers. Here's a little battery holder that I designed to hold 6 batteries made out of TPU. Here's a holder for the Quieter 3 to hold it upright. So you can just use Tinkercad, and Tinkercad is a Boolean type 3D designer. And there's lots of instructional stuff on how to use it. And once you get the hang of that, it's very simple. You work with primary shapes and you assemble them in positive and negative versions. So you subtract one shape from another shape to get a new shape. And then you just click export to STL and then you load it into your slicer. It slices it up with the default settings for your printer and you send it to the printer. And you don't really have to, although the slicer is kind of daunting because, you go into most slicers, which is the software that is designed to take your 3D object and cut it into individual slices so that when it's printed out in an FDM printer, it all lines up and prints out accurately in the size and orientation, and you can multiply it any number of times. There's like 450 settings on that slicer, but the default settings usually work just fine as long as you tell it what type of material you're printing with and what type of printer you have. So it loads the printer profile. It sets the 450 different settings that you can tweak. So you can tweak to your heart's desire to try and improve your printout. But usually you'll get a pretty darn good printout with just the default settings. So I say dip your toe in, and for around $200, you can get them with a discount on Crealities. I've seen them under $200.
Samuel?
Yeah, Courtney covered most of it. The only thing I would add is that if you're going to do a lot of prints, then it's very practical to have like a Octoprint. It's like you can run on a Raspberry Pi and connect it to your printer. So then you just upload the files on on the web interface instead of having to use USB and transfer them.
Alex?
And a lot of them will have, like the cheaty ones can get on your network, and so you can pass it to them. I have to admit, I don't do that, but they can. So a lot of them will have those. The newer ones will have that. Do look at look at some of the software that they have there. I think that some of the ones that are a little less expensive, it depends on you just look at your threshold for building things. So I think that I ordered mine in a way that I had to level it. Like that's what I had to do. I had to level I had to run a little thing to level it, but that was it. Like it was like, I'm not going to build anything because I just don't want to spend the time on it. And so you just do look at those so whether you want to put it all together. I have found that most of my friends that have bought a printer and not used it bought one that they had to put together, and they put together and something wasn't quite right, and then they stopped using it. Or they never got a print out of it. So that's the only thing I would think about. If you're very mechanical like Courtney, definitely buy one that you can build. If you are less mechanical, then think about one that's already put together when it shows up.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. He says, I just acquired a 25 by 20 insulated shop with 12-foot ceilings. I want to use it as a studio and workshop. Should I leave it all open or section it into 2 rooms? It has a concrete floor, which I pressure washed yesterday, and got the old car smells out.
Mitchell?
Hey, Paul, congratulations. That is an excellent space. A lot of people I know would kill for it. Please don't start sectioning it off, because then you lose the aspect of having such an open space with decent ceilings. So you can do all kinds of stuff there. If it doesn't have a clear span, or if it has poles supporting, then you might as well go ahead and break it down. But the idea of a space that big, first thing I do is I turn it into a car studio, hang a nice silk, and you could be the only guy in Hot Springs, Arkansas, with the best studio for shooting cars.
Alex?
I definitely wouldn't shoot any cars. I'd be very curious if you do have poles. So let us know if you have poles sticking out, because that does make a big difference on the studio as to what value it has for you. I would definitely agree with Mitchell not to section. I would definitely not section it off. So you might have things that are stored in a space that's outside of it, but don't do anything permanent to it. Really think about a grid. You've got 12 feet, so that you really have room to put a grid up there. So a 3x3 grid will go a long way for you. Maybe a 30-inch by 30-inch grid. Put it up there with speed rail so that you can do it. Think about how often you want to get on a ladder. If you don't want to get on a ladder very often, think about motors for that grid. That way you can lower the grid and raise it back up again. It's pretty life-changing to be able to do that. So really think about building that out so that you can very quickly when you make things easier to do, you fiddle with them more. Like you can actually work on them. The problem is if it's hard to get to or it takes a long time, you have a tendency to burrow into where you're at. And then you have, it looks like a great space, sounds like a great space. One thing you want to do is figure out how you're going to soften that floor a little bit. Before you put the grid in, think about, you can spray diffusion across the top of the ceiling, or you can put something in there. But there's certain things to think about before you put everything else in. Number one is, are you getting a lot of exterior sound? So I think your house is pretty far isolated, so I don't think you have probably a lot of exterior, but listen for it. Just sit in there, put a desk in there, and just work all day for a day. You'll start to hear whatever's happening. It could be just loud birds, it could be trucks, it could be planes. Figure that out. If you're really going to turn this into a studio, you may have to start thinking about how you're going to insulate it if that happens. So I made the choice one time of not floating a studio, and then I never used it. So anyway, because it was too much noise, and so think about the sound, think about reflections. On that floor, the other thing you want to think about is how many cables are you going to run. One of the things that we suggest, or one of the things that I would do in a floor like that, is I would look at whether I can afford to put a raised floor in. And that's, I don't raise it up. There's like ones for engineering. I don't do that. But you can get these little interlocking floor modules that raise up your floor about 1.5 inches to 2 inches high. And what they do is they allow you to run all your cables underneath the floor. It's super nice, especially if you're going to shoot on the studio, because it's got little openings everywhere. So then you throw a carpet over top of that, and you can run tanks. So literally, they're designed to run tanks over. So you can run, they're pretty durable as far as that goes. And then the other thing that I did with the last studio that I built for myself was I built an ectoskeleton of using 8020 that then had magnets on the front end. Then we could change the set in about a couple hours. You could change the whole set out for another set. And so those are things that you can think out. Otherwise, think about how you're going to subdivide it so that you can, if you point the cameras in a certain direction, you get one set. You point the cameras in another, you have another set. But what I would suggest is we'll do a whole second hour talking about your 25 by 20 thing. So take a bunch of pictures, get Polycam and wander around there and get us a 3D model. And it would be fun. Even if you don't agree with anything and don't do anything that we're going to do, the thought process of what would we do with a 20 by 20 by 12 and think about those things, totally in. So let us know and we'll play with it.
Chris?
I think the natural follow-up question is what kind of tank, Alex? Like
M1.
Okay, good to know. First of all, 20 by 25 isn't that big. It's a two-car garage. This is about the size of a two-car garage. The 12 feet is interesting. I totally agree. I wouldn't subdivide it. What I would do is I would have a desk system with all the distance that you have. I'd probably go kind of diagonal across it as a backdrop, and then I would have functional work areas. You can't shoot in a car. You can't shoot a car in a 20 by 25.
What I would say is that I had the last studio I built was the last one I built was a 20 by 18 by 25, so it was only 2 feet thinner, which I really would have loved the other 2 feet. But you're absolutely right. We wouldn't even put the control room in there. So like I would have, for a studio, I would try to find somewhere else in the house. I might have little controllers in there, but I would even try, that room is small enough that I wouldn't even try to put anything that was rack mountable in there. I'd try to find a place outside, build another storage unit that sits next to it, something like that I'm going to put my gear that space is small enough. Fans. Anything that with fans, you're going to hear it. So you're going to, it's not a very large space, but it's a great size for a studio. I'm working on turning my garage into a studio. It's not that much bigger than that. So I think
you do with all your stuff.
Well, that's what I'm working on right now is getting rid of all the stuff so that I got to get rid of the stuff.
At Alex's house.
I have so many hard drives. Anyway, so I'm getting rid of all the stuff, and then I'm turning into probably more of a workshop studio. So I'm going to get a bunch of woodworking stuff and take videos of me
Who's the guy on YouTube that is in the giant room that looks like Batman's Tumblr test room? Do you know the guy I'm talking about?
I do, but I can't think of who it is.
I can't think of it. Unbox Therapy. Mickey, yeah. Thank you, Mickey. So that's what I would do, Paul. I would just have the ultimate backdrop behind you and just have functional work desks. That's what I do.
Well, we should, Paul, take a whole bunch of pictures and get on Polycam, and we'll set up a second hour and we'll all talk about it. We'll all talk about Paul's space.
Mitchell?
Let me emphasize, take care of your audio treatment now. You'll thank me later. Like Alex says, you can treat that ceiling when it's wide open, nothing in there to worry about. Do anything you can to absorb all those reflections, because once you get in there and you do a RT60 test, you're going to find you get all kinds of echoes you need to tame. You can put stuff in there, but maybe if it's not. And then the other thing I would do is put a cyc in one corner. That would be marvelous.
Courtney?
Yeah, you might want to put in an area rug, but the problem with putting an area rug in is at least if it's going to work as a shop as well, you don't want to be dropping little screws into a deep plush area rug. So you have to have an area if you're going to keep it as a shop. Keep that concrete floor so you can find the little pieces when you drop them off your workbench, and use the area rug to fill the studio side, and it'll help knock down a lot of the reflection. That concrete floor is going to be murder if it has a flat ceiling. So you want to either put a drop ceiling in or something up there to absorb the sound up in the roof, and throw a nice thick area rug on the floor. Maybe indoor outdoor carpeting, just so you can pressure wash it if it gets really nasty. And since it's a garage type, you can wash the water outside. But something to keep the reflections off that concrete.
And on your walls and ceiling, you can actually buy perforated corrugated metal panels and screw those into the walls. They add enough variation to the walls, and all the holes actually do a good job of sucking up the sound and killing the reflections. I've been in a lot of barns that have these, and it is eerily quiet. But if you're trying to cover a huge space like that, you don't want to be super labor intensive. Chris?
I'd like to point out we've spent the last 7 minutes talking about an empty room. Office hours is great.
So awesome.
All right, next question.
Next question comes in from Brett Ballou in Appleton, Wisconsin. He says, Shure's $500 KSM32 cardioid condenser mic has a low-frequency filter that they claim will virtually eliminate background noise. AI almost at half the cost of a MixPre with NoiseAssist. Might this be a worthwhile alternative using just the mic?
Alex?
No. So the low frequency filter might get rid of all the bumps and the pops and some of the other things that are going on. Anytime someone says virtually eliminate background noise, you should start looking at them sideways, and a microphone. The microphone, if it does that, it's going to do a lot of other things to your voice as well. I don't think that it looks like a great mic. It doesn't. I'm not saying that it's not a good mic, but don't think that it's going to replace your noise assist, as a mic. But it might give you a great sound. But if you said, should I use the Stellar with NoiseAssist on an MixPre or should I use that mic? I would take this immediately. So without any doubt.
Mitchell?
Yeah, it might eliminate a lot of the background noise if it's rumble or something, a low frequency sound, and the bass tilt button on there would possibly reduce that. But there's no smarts inside that microphone that can do what a MixPre can do.
Courtney?
Yeah, it's a large diaphragm condenser, which a lot of noise is not just low frequency. Low frequency roll off is, like Alex said, for eliminating rumble or, when you pound your desk or, keeping the low frequency noises from getting into the low frequency of the, making the diaphragm vibrate and gets into your soundtrack. But it also affects your audio as well. So if you have a deep voice, running the low frequency cutoff can bring your voice, eliminate some of those tones that you may want in the lower registers. The AI, like NoiseAssist, that is used in the sound devices, is a broad spectrum noise removal. So it can be clanging noise or a high frequency hum coming from a refrigerator or a fan off camera that it can eliminate, where a low frequency roll off is not going to affect that higher frequency sound at all.
All righty. Well, that's going to take us right up to near the top of our first hour. Just a couple things while we're at leading up to the break. Coming up on Office Hours this week, obviously, we've got, like every Sunday, tomorrow is going to be about introspection. That is broadcast on Zoom and not recorded and sent up to YouTube, so make sure to look for the link so you can join us in there. It's always a lot of fun. Monday, we've got presentations with Alex Lindsay. I know a lot of us are excited about that one, too. We're all going to get better at Keynote. There's some stuff about it. Go ahead.
And that's going to actually be a lot of different folks talking about presentations.
Awesome. Fantastic. Audio Scopes is later in the week. We're going to spend some time looking at Rundown Studio and BitFocus Companion for more software-focused things. So, yeah, it's a jam-packed week leading up to the holiday. The other reminder is today, immediately after the show, if we go all the way, but I guess it's 9 o'clock Pacific. If you're interested in seeing what it takes to become a volunteer and want to learn more about how to get involved with us here at Office Hours, we do have a meeting for new volunteers. So check the Discord for a Zoom link there to see what that's all about. And I've got first month host jitters, and I'm a whole minute early on the second hour.
Yeah, just, coming up,
Thank you.
one thing there. Yeah, I was like, wow, he starts really early. I wonder what he's going to announce. I was like, there's so much time there. So the another thing to think about right now is that in about an hour, we'll probably finish this a little bit short. So we'll have a little bit of time between this show and the next show. In about an hour, I'll be talking to everyone, or a couple of us will be talking to you about volunteering. So if you're interested, and this is not the regular volunteer, you're already a volunteer, you don't have to do anything. But if you're interested in volunteering, if you'd like to find out, and if you've been a volunteer and you want to hear us talk about it again, that's fine too. But we're going to be talking about the volunteering process, and so what are the opportunities? Why would you do that? And kind of answering your questions around volunteering. This is less about being on the panel and all the other volunteer opportunities there are, like running the show and building all the other things that make office hours what it is. Now I'm going to hand it back to CJ.
And with that, we're approaching the top of the hour for real this time, so make sure that you hang out for even more questions. And thanks, everybody. Remember, keep submitting your questions. We want to see them because we need more if we're going to go all the way. Thank you.
And then he went over.
And then I went over. Welcome back to the second hour.
It's good.
We're going to get off this dumpster fire of a host, and let's get to the next question.
I just want to say it took me like 2 weeks to figure that out. So you've only done it twice so far. So you're doing great.
Yeah. Next question.
From Sam Reed in Maine. He says, a passion project, a friend is turning an old church into a restaurant, but during the renovation, it's a private movie theater for his friends and family. I've only calibrated monitors before. What's the best way to go about calibrating the projected image?
Courtney, lead us off.
Well, first of all, make sure the church has been deconsecrated. Otherwise, you will have the locals storming the church and being mean and nasty to you. But as far as the projector goes, if it's not for if you're not rephotographing this projected image, it depends on a lot of stuff. It depends on what you're projecting it on. Is it just a white wall? Is it a reflective screen? Is it a painted wall that is not white, slightly yellow or off-white? All those will affect your color balance and your brightness of your image. If it's just for the entertainment of family and friends, I wouldn't go too crazy with calibrating it. Just go with the Rec 709 or whatever calibration the projector has in it, and make sure your projector has enough brightness to fill the screen at whatever distance it has to work at. And go from there. I think you can adjust the contrast and brightness, and it depends on what you're feeding it with and whether or not the projector will support HDR. If it does do HDR, you want to make sure it's a darkened room. You have the ability to turn out the lights and you're only working at night. If it's a church and has a lot of stained glass, that can have, a deleterious effect on trying to project anything during the daylight, because the multitude of colors coming in and hitting the white screen is going to mess up your color balance and maybe even paint little colored patterns on the screen. So that's a couple of things to look out for. Just make it look good so everybody in the room can enjoy it, and get your speakers at the front of put some external speakers at the front near the screen, so that that works better for you, because it can be a little echoey in a church, especially with vaulted ceilings. So make sure the audio is clear, and I wouldn't worry too much about calibrating the color balance of the projector.
Alex?
Yeah, I once saw Alice in Chains play in a cathedral, and I'm still trying to, go to church and wipe that out of my soul. So anyway, I was like at the Limelight in New York, just going, I should not be here. Like this is a bad idea. Anyway, what I would say is that from a projection perspective, calorimeters is what you're looking for if you really want to do this. Of course, you're going to have to keystone and get everything working. For the most part, if I'm just having fun, I can do it by eye, of looking at whether things are posterized, and you can throw up a couple test signals like gradients and so on and so forth, and just see what's getting cut off. I know when I was testing it at my house, I did try to make it look nice. I did not pull out a calorimeter. I put out some test signals and got them to a point where I was seeing that I wasn't posterizing or banding or doing all the things that I would do, and I'm getting kind of a full area there. But the calorimeters, CalMan, Portrait, Klein, all make different calorimeters that you might be able to use to measure the actual, if you're really going to get into it. But it's one of those things. If you're not going to do it more than once, it's a big investment and a lot of time to put into one projector. And I might just hire somebody to do it. I know this is the theme for the day, is like hire a specialist who knows how to do this to come in, and they'll do it in about an hour. So so think about that as well.
Mitchell?
And Alex has brought something up. I think we should do a second hour on Limelight experiences in New York. I have quite a few.
That's not a second hour. That's just like a random after hours conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Courtney?
Yeah, I also remember the Limelight. These days, it depends on the projector. The modern day projectors with that have digital processing on their inputs can do automatic keystone correction and everything else. That's one thing you want to pay attention to is correcting for the angle of the projector to the screen, which is going to give you a trapezoidal shape if you don't do keystone correction, which most projectors these days have it built in. And there's a lot of them that are automated in a lot of respects. It will automatically focus, will automatically keystone correct, and will automatically color balance for you. So it depends on your projector.
If you haven't bought the projector yet and you have a little bit of budget, for about $2,000 you can get an Epson home cinema that actually has a motorized lens. And so if you're in a space where you're not going to be able to move it around and jump up and down, the ability to just hit a button and center the image and zoom it in and out a little bit, man, does that make all the difference in the world. Just an easy thing. Next question.
Next one comes in from Peter Jonasson in Sweden. Jonasson. What audio and or video recorders feature you? Excuse me. Let me start that again. What audio and or video recorders feature are you missing in the currently available lineup? What do the next generations need?
Mitchell?
I guess it's okay to have a Christmas miracle happen, and somehow, some way, NoiseAssist can find its way as a plug-in into other devices. That would be my first wish. I know it won't happen, but I can only wish. The other part that I thought was interesting, we were having an interesting conversation on After Hours. Ronnie Hufsoy and I were talking about different noise things. Noise is obviously my issue. And he said that the audio hijack, I think there's some kind of voice processor plug-in or actuality that you can put in there, does an excellent job. In fact, he said it was better than NoiseAssist. So that really got my attention. So, and then the third thing would be, I know it doesn't already exist, but a black box made by Sound Devices that has NoiseAssist, a mic preamp, and as Alex has asked before, a ability to have a web server so you can remote control it.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that an updated version of the PIX 240 would go well. I still use PIX 240s in my pipelines if they're 1080p, having one that is capable of 4K 120. The big thing that the 240 has that we call the 2400, let's say, but the big thing that it had or that it has that I haven't been able to see again is number one is the level of reliability, but also the level of reliability, but also the audio pipeline. So, for instance, I'll have a PIX 240 with 4 channels, and two of them are the SDI, or I can have more than that too. I mean, I can have lots of channels, but I can route the analogs in as well as the returns from the computer if I'm doing some kind of record, and being able to do all of those things and be able to manage those. Like I was doing a test recently that I was using the PIX 240 because of my ability to route what was coming in and what was coming out and making those selections. And there's just not that the video recorders out there. There's a lot of great ones, Blackmagic, Atomos, everything else. They're not paying attention to audio at all. Like they're just, like they have, oh yeah, we got stereo inputs, but there's no routing, there's no outputs, there's no like all of those things. And I would love to see if Sound Devices did it. I'd love to see NoiseAssist. The reason you'd want NoiseAssist in a recorder is mostly because we used a lot of the PIXs for live. So so we were using them to record, but they were also part of the pipeline. That was our embedder. That was our, oftentimes we were doing some things that are really, really complex inside of those PIXs because they could. And so I think that it would be great to have those kinds of features in an audio and video recorder. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that, I'll be honest, I don't think that other than price, there's not a lot in the Sound Devices line that doesn't doesn't do more than what I typically need. I would love to see a less expensive, like a MixPre 3 or MixPre 6 with TA3s out, and potentially be able to get to network audio. But TA3 outputs, to just balanced outs, would be pretty amazing on some of the smaller pieces there. And I would, as Mitch said, love to see something that is a version of something that's very basic, that doesn't allow you to do anything other than affect your volume and your mix, and then I take over as far as audio recording.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I still have my Christmas wish list going here. I plus one on what Alex said about the Pix 240. I will never sell it. I will never get rid of it. I will always have a use for it as long as 1080 is still working. Imagine NoiseAssist for that. That would be something. And then the only other thing on my Christmas wish list that would improve an already device is an anti-black crusher on my ATEM. Just automatically.
I don't. I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah. Anyway, I wouldn't be too concerned about that.
Are you the ghost from Christmas Future?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Courtney?
Yeah, I would rename it anti-black crusher. That would be bad. I also like, there's stuff available now that has most of the stuff that I want. If you look at the Blackmagic Video Assist, it has almost everything the Pix 240 has in it, plus more, because it has the SDI.
How's the audio routing on it?
It's got many TA3s for
those are inputs
audio.
Though. Those are inputs, right?
Oh, you mean how's
the audio output out of that thing? Can it
comes out? It's embedded over the SDI
But how's the
HDMI.
analog outputs from it? Because the Pix 240 has the analog outputs, and I use it every single time I use a Pix 240.
It has headphone outputs, but I don't think it has unbalanced.
Sorry,
I don't think it has balanced
that's
output. And
two balanced outputs.
Yeah,
four if you have
stereo.
AES.
Stereo balanced outputs, but it does. You can always disembed from the SDI. You can probably bring in 16 channels if you want. It doesn't have NoiseAssist in it, but if you're running in response to Mitch, NVIDIA Broadcast is a free download if you've got an NVIDIA RTX card. This does amazing noise removal and cleans up your video as well. So it's a free download if you've got a computer that has it probably won't be available in any of those newer Apple computers, but if you have a PC or a laptop that has the NVIDIA RTX cards in it, that software will run and do an amazing job at cleaning up your video and audio. The thing I wish is I just wish the Blackmagic 12K Video Assist would half in price, and then it'd be really great. That's my Christmas wish: is sales, deductions, lower prices.
Next question.
From Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois. Speaking of Apple TV and remotes, I reprogrammed my Apple remote to control the TV, but I updated the TV OS and now it doesn't work. Says it is programmed, but doesn't work. Any ideas?
Go ahead, Alex.
The last update kind of screwed up the controls, and I don't know if Apple did that on purpose or whether they're doing it by accident. I don't. So I can tell you that, I'm trying to figure that out, and I don't know where to look. Here's the problem: is that you used to be able to do everything with that top little area. I just ignore all those little buttons, and I just use the top area for everything. Like the old one. The buttons mean nothing to me, and that got broken in the last update. My guess is that breaking of that in the last update is probably connected to Apple rerouting how you use your buttons, which is probably going to break a whole bunch of things for a while because you no longer can just tap on it and hit. There's a weird thing right now. If you tap on the top part, and if you have the new controller, literally the reason I bought the newest Apple TV and I don't use it because I hate that controller. And so I was just like, there's nothing in this thing that I'm using right now that I need. I'm just going to keep on using my older 4K one. And it was because I love that little box at the top. I had learned how to use it. I know how to use it. I don't need all those little buttons. I don't want to look. Here's the problem with the buttons. It's looking down at night. Like looking down when it's dark when you didn't have any buttons. I knew exactly what to do with my thumb, and everything would work. And now now I have to figure out where all those stupid buttons are because Apple broke down and did the dumb thing, which is to put buttons on their controller.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I agree with Alex. This remote, the older one, is the cat's meow, as it were.
No. The one before that is the cat's meow.
Before
without any
this,
buttons,
this is the
with
4K.
no
This
buttons.
one will work. Ooh.
Yeah, but the best one.
This has your
buttons.
your gear up
I know,
here.
but it doesn't. They broke it in the last update.
The only problem with this is that in the dark of night you can't tell which end is up.
Well, and if you there used to be one that had no buttons on the top, or almost no buttons on the top, and it was great. And I still just ignore most of those buttons until this last update, and now I have to actually learn where all the buttons are because Apple has.
So there are 3 of them, is what you're saying.
Well, there's 4 or 5 different controllers. I mean, I've been using Apple.
Yeah,
the Apple TV
at the
since
4K, they
one.
actually put a little piece of white plastic around one of the buttons on the bottom on your style remote, Mitch, because people were having trouble figuring out which end was up.
Yeah.
Quite literally. Courtney?
I'm not sure how it controls your TV if it's using CEC, but make sure if it is, maybe the update there's a couple of things. Sometimes there's a pairing process that goes on between the remote and the TV and or Apple TV. So because you could have, one remote for one TV and another remote for another Apple TV in the same room, and you don't want them talking to each other. So you pair them.
You can match them. You just put them next to each other, and you can definitely have 2 different controllers.
But if you're controlling the TV with the Apple TV remote, unplug the HDMI cables while they're both on, and the TV is set to the HDMI input that the Apple TV is plugged into, and then while they're both on, unplug both ends of the HDMI cable and then plug them back in, because this will reinitiate the CEC for that particular control. So maybe the CECs have been reset, or they changed the handshake or something in the Apple TV so that it doesn't no longer handshakes correctly to an existing already registered input on that HDMI. So unplug the HDMI, plug it back in again, and see then if it will start working.
Chris?
I just got to say, there's a lot of really smart people here, and this stuff is so confusing. It's so poorly engineered. It's so poorly designed. And just the whole television industry is just a travesty. The fact that it's this difficult for these 8 people, whatever, to figure this stuff out, it's ridiculous. Drives me nuts. I'm sorry, that's not really a question or an answer. It's just me ranting. It was my turn to talk. I hadn't talked in a while. I needed to talk. Bye.
So what else is new, right?
All rants aside, Kyle, check to make sure that your TV is getting firmware updates. I'm usually opposed to plugging a TV into the internet, but make sure your TV is getting firmware updates, and make sure that your Apple TV is upgraded to the latest version of tvOS. When tvOS 17 or whatever the current one first came out, I couldn't use the power on, power off feature for like 3 weeks with my Samsung. And then somewhere in 3 weeks with software updates, everything started talking to each other again. Wait and hope usually isn't a strategy, but in this case, I don't know. I don't know what other options we have. Next question.
Next question comes in from Sam Reed in Maine. He says, best creative pen tablet to use with Mac Adobe Affinity. I've done graphics and photo work for years using only mice and trackpads. Want to learn a tool like Wacom, excuse me again, Wacom, like walking the duck, Wacom for these tasks. But B&H reviews are disconcerting. Don't buy if you're on a Mac, etc.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I don't know what the review is. It says don't buy it when you're on a Mac. I have been using Macs for a very long time, and I've been using Wacoms for a very long time, and they've always worked perfectly. So I think the Apple ecosystem is pretty darn big for Wacom. So I would not worry too much about compatibility there. I do think I've got a lot of other tablets trying to find a less expensive one, and I have not been happy with any of them. I've used the Intuos, the large ones that are 22-inch, 24-inch. They used to make a 24-inch. The one that I have right here that's next to me is the one that I use for this telestrator is the Wacom One. And it's not, There we go. Yeah, this one is a Wacom one. And the reason I got that is because it's the least expensive one, and it doesn't have a lot of the little bells and whistles and extra buttons, but it is less expensive, and all I need it for is what I'm using it for. So, but you can get ones that are more, if you're really trying to get creative, I think about the Intuos line, and I definitely get one with a screen to do that. Now, remember, if you already have an iPad, the iPad will do I know a lot of folks that have gotten rid of their Wacoms because they can tie their iPad back into their computer and use it as a monitor and draw over top of things. And so that's another thing to look at. But if you're not going to do that, the Wacom is the way to go. I've had like 5 or 6 different brands trying to find better, less expensive ways to do this and have not been successful.
Next question.
Oh, that's me, isn't it? Douglas Carmichael says, what PC laptop would you consider to be the equivalent of a MacBook Pro in design and build?
Samuel?
You probably won't find anything that's equivalent when it comes to battery life and design. But if it's the design is your main thing, then I would look at the Microsoft Surface line. They have quite powerful PCs. But another thing that you can consider if you want like a powerful PC to do like video editing and stuff, the Dell XPS lines has some good options, and also Lenovo Legion has some good lines. So it all depends on. But you have to, if you need like Thunderbolt and stuff, you have to check it, because even since there's almost the same model name, one can have Thunderbolt and one can not. So you have to check and double check.
Courtney?
Sorry, unmuted. You may not find anything that's equivalent, because it will be a lot cheaper than the MacBook Pro. So if you want to pay that much, it depends on what you want to do. I just bought, here's one that I like. I just bought one of these as my portable computer. It's the Acer Swift Go 14. It's a 14-inch. It has 2 Thunderbolt ports on the side, along with full-size HDMI and 2 full-size A-type USB 3.1s on the side there. So it's got all the ports, unlike the MacBook Pro. It has 13th gen Intel chips, so it's got 10 cores. It does a decent job. It has a very fast NVMe drive, all solid state drive, a nice display, 1920 by 1200. And it's $800. So you can get 2 of these for the price of a similarly configured Mac laptop.
Alex?
When comparing the operational speed in most AV apps, as well as the battery life, as well as the cost, you probably won't find anything that goes head to head. It just depends on how you're using it. But you can decide that a PC might have more of the things, one thing or another. But I can tell you that we've tried to find some PCs that will do what the new Mac Pros will do, and they are beasts. Really thick PCs that cost a lot of money to get close to what we're trying to do. The other ones just simply won't run what we're trying to run. So I think that those are, there's a big challenge. There's a reason that some of this software like Zoom ISO and other things only run on the Mac, is because the throughput is very different. Like the PC, the do it on a PC requires a lot more horsepower, and it has to do with the operating system and how it interrelates to the architecture.
Chris?
Hey, Courtney, was that an Acer you were showing?
Yes, it were. Yeah.
Does it have a parallel port?
Funny guy. Yeah, it has an RS-232 port too. If you plug in the adapter bridge to it, but it does come with 16 gigabytes of RAM, and you don't have to pay $400 to go from 8 gigabytes to 16.
So I want to pitch for people. I want to really encourage people to join the panel, be a part of this, because I got to say, one of the most fun things to do is when Alex is saying pro Apple stuff, is to watch Courtney squirm in his little Hollywood Squares box over here. It's really enjoyable, and the only way you're going to really see all that is to join the panel here on Office Hours. So Come join the fun.
And I think that the power of the panel is the fact that you'll get an answer from 4 or 5 different people, and they won't agree, and you get to decide which one you want to follow. So that is the best part. Courtney makes his case, I make my case, Samuel makes his case, Chris just makes fun of all of us.
We need more Windows users here. We're outnumbered here by the Mac fans.
Go back. Courtney, welcome to being a Mac user like all through the 90s. So go back an hour and a half, and the whole what was it? Migration assistant. Alex is like, I would never ever in a million, never ever. And I'm like, man, I use it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. See,
there you go.
You have to decide.
That's right.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Todd Weiser in Fort Walton Beach. He says, has anyone shot video with Philips Hue lights in the picture? Any interference or issues?
Alex?
I haven't had any trouble. I haven't had them very close to anything. Chris has got some over there right now. He's gonna probably show you them. But I carry them. I've moved. Now I admit that I have moved from the Philips Hues to the Aperture 6Cs or 7Cs because I had more control over the Aperture ones. But I know that I'm a little bit over the top, but I'm in a lot of meetings, and sometimes I'm on this show from a hotel, and I have 2 of these little. I have a couple of these things so that I can replace the lights in the hotel with the lights that I want, so I can color it the way I want to color it. So not all hotel lights, but most lights use a standard light. So I just take those bulbs out, I put them in a shelf, and I put the Aperture 7Cs in. But before that, I was putting the Philips Hues. The Hues lights worked fine. The only problem I had with them is that I didn't have as much control. It wasn't as easy to control from my iPhone as it is to do with the Apertures. So yeah.
Samuel?
Yeah, I have some Hue lights and some IKEA lights that I have in the same system, and they work well. I haven't really had, sometimes here in Norway we get flickering because we have a 50 hertz power, and I do all my video in 60 FPS normally. So then we can get some flicker, but they just adjust the shutter speed a little bit, and it normally fixes it.
Courtney?
Yes, I'm going to hit on the problem that you're going to run into, may run into, is most of these electronically dimmable lights like the Hue lights or any of the Wi-Fi controlled multicolored LED lights dim by using pulse width modulation and sometimes pulse frequency modulation. And that can sometimes show up as a flicker especially when you're dimming it down below 50% or so. So it depends on your camera's sample rate or shutter speed. Increase your shutter speed to remove the flicker. A lot of times if you're having that, you can just increase your shutter angle, or decrease your shutter speed. If you increase your shutter angle, you decrease your shutter speed, right? And it stays open longer. It samples over a longer period of time, and that way you'll get less flicker.
Alex?
And this is what it looks like when I use it in a hotel room. So here's one of my setups, and I took these are Hues that I took the lights out of these bulbs and put the Hue lights in so that I have a nicer, background in my hotel. So, by the way, I think that to completely take this to on a side note is that I had the opportunity to talk to a hotel. I don't think they're going to do it, but I really think that hotels building spaces, like building rooms that are designed for people who are video conferencing, is the next big business. Because I literally know what rooms to go into in the Lowe's Hotel in Hollywood, because I request the specific rooms because I know that I can put my kid into it, and I know that there won't be beds in the way, and so on and so forth.
Alex, how did you get the Hue lights to work if they weren't on your Wi-Fi, or did they get joined somehow?
There's a different Hue system that I didn't need to put on a Wi-Fi. I don't remember what it was, but I know that I don't remember how I did it because this is years ago. I don't know how long ago that was, but I didn't, or I put it on something. I don't remember how I did it. I just know that I did get the Hues to work because those are Hues that I put in there. So,
Mitchell?
Alex, you ever forget, leave them in the hotel room and completely mystify the
I had to run
staff?
back and grab these ones. I got about a mile away before I realized I left them in there. So yes, you do forget to take them out.
Samuel?
And when it comes to the Hue lights, then you can either connect them to Bluetooth, or else there's the Zigbee protocol that you connect to the hub.
I all I remember is putting them in, pairing them with my phone, and then they worked. So I didn't have to do anything else to them. But it's a great way to travel. I would highly recommend it.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Robert Choji in Los Angeles. He says, what is the recommended way to clean your monitor and laptop screens?
Mitchell?
I think Chris would say just throw them out when they get dirty. But if you want to actually clean them, suggest a microfiber type cloth like this, same kind you use for your glasses. The next step would be a microfiber, but be careful of the edges, which is Alexander has mentioned before. And never, ever, as Alex would say, ever use Windex with ammonia. And ammonia is not your friend when it comes to cleaning them. Personally, I use a little water with just a drop of Dawn dishwashing detergent in it. Works a treat.
Alex?
I only use water, and I do use a microfiber one that's got a little bit more porous than the one that I'm looking for. I actually use this one. So this is one of those ones you can buy these by the package at other places like that. And I use this with some water. I don't know. And this is a religious thing that happened a long time ago, in that I don't put anything other than water on my monitors. And it makes me also fairly careful about not doing anything around my monitors that would require anything more than that. But I think a lot of that has to do with, just like I keep them clean. I keep them far away. I don't, anyway. So what I would say is that the ones that you have to be really careful of are matte monitors. Matte monitors are super sensitive, and you can get things into them. If they're glass, you can get away with a lot. I've seen people use detergents and all kinds of other stuff to them, but generally I'll only use water in this and a cloth like this. I think you can get away with it. But on the ones that are matte, you have to be super careful about
and
even how you use water.
Don't run those microfibers in your dish or your laundry stuff, because it puts stuff on it that detergent is a problem.
Yeah.
Courtney?
And I agree with most of that. I would dust it first with the microfiber to get the dust off before you try and clean it with any type of solution. And for solutions, I've used one thing: if you're going to apply a solution, never spray it directly on the screen. And of course, if you're fortunate enough to have touch screens like the Acer Swift Go, which does have touch on it, you have more of a likelihood to build up a little grease from your finger if you're using it as a touch screen a lot. So you are going to need some kind of detergent or something or alcohol. And another good cleaner is about a 50-50 dilution of isopropyl and water and distilled water. Make sure you use distilled water, because regular water or tap water can leave a little residue on there. And wet the cloth, just slightly dampen the cloth, and wipe it across there, and the alcohol will help it evaporate more quickly, and it will help break up the oils from your finger if you have a touch screen.
Chris, you had something to say?
No, what I wanted to say was that I have probably done every one of the things that you guys said you should never, ever do. Windex on the monitor, fine grit sandpaper to get the sticky stuff off. I mean, everything you can imagine. But I did get this because Jason mentioned it the other day. And my big thing is keep your monitors clean. Like Alex said, don't take your monitors out, while you're grilling on the barbecue in the backyard and put it too close, because you'll get stuff on it that you don't want. I also virtually never do I touch the monitor. And I used to get really militant about people who would, go like, can we move this from here over? It's like that, and just keeping it clean. But I will say I did this whoosh stuff on my laptop screen, because those always get, completely disgusting. And it really did a great job cleaning it.
Somebody in my office likes to point with pens when they talk, and they started to approach my computer screen with an open pen. I said, you need to close your pen. Stop that right now.
Or I'm going to break your fingers.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Ken Jordan in Angers-sur-Marne, France. And he says, during the X32 mixer show, there was a mention of a preference for Yamaha mixers over Allen & Heath. Could you elaborate on the reasons behind this? I'm considering an Allen & Heath CQ18T for my studio for multiple synthesizers and would value your insights.
Samuel?
Well, when we were shopping for a new mixer at our church, and then we bought a Yamaha TF1, and the main reason we bought this mixer is because another church that I work with a lot, they have this mixer, or they have the larger version of it. So, like, it's easier, like, to when someone knows the system, then to mix on it is like we can like have a trade over, like people can use our mixer and we can use their mixer.
All right, Mitchell?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to pick one mixer over another. I usually start with the MixPres. If the MixPres are really good, then chances are there's going to be other things to find out. So I'm just saying, I'm just touching the surface of all the things you can do with it. Like the X32, if they start putting those Midas preamps into the X32, that would be something.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I owned a couple Allen & Heaths, and then we moved to Yamahas, and you know, the workflow, I found that the workflow in Allen & Heath was kind of like inverted from what I was expecting. It's kind of hard. I haven't used it for so long. It'd be hard for me to get into all the details of it. But every time I felt like I was using it, I felt like I was using it wrong. You know, and then when we started using I know that it's a lot easier for us to find talent that'll do Yamahas. So Yamahas and X32s are everybody knows how to use. It seems like Allen & Heath is a little less common. And I guess the final nail in the coffin for me was that I bought one and it stopped working like pretty suddenly, and I was like, so I think that it's mostly a workflow thing. I don't think it's I think that if you get an Allen & Heath and a Yamaha, they're not going to be that much different in quality. Head to head, so it's not like the build components are different at the same competitive thing. But I do think I know very few people. In my world, I know very few people that would prefer an Allen & Heath over a Yamaha from a workflow ecosystem perspective.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I would just have to ask Alex. I mean, as far as functionality goes, you like the Yamaha over the Allen & Heath?
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I got that right.
And I'm going to say, I am not a mixer expert. I get on there and I bang on things and I make things go. It's mostly conversations with my engineers who would strongly prefer, when they're speccing it, that would strongly prefer a Yamaha over a Allen & Heath. I'm not going to tell you that I sat there and mixed 3 concerts with 3 different mixers and made a decision. But I'm just saying that the discussions that I have with the engineers, at least the ones that I use, has been usually a strong preference for the Yamaha mixers over the Allen & Heaths.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Kansas City, Kansas in the USA. Eric Pierce wants to know, what does the panel think of musician Steve Wilson's Porcupine Tree Blackfield use of AI to write a Christmas song after he was challenged by a friend to write one, saying it wasn't his thing, and he has a link to it there.
Alex?
I got to look at a little of it. It was fine. Like if you mix that into a radio show and you were playing Christmas tunes and you played that one, I don't think anyone would notice. I mean, he's still producing it. I mean, he still sang it. He had ChatGPT write it. So ChatGPT does a solid. I've had it write some songs as a test, and it does a solid job at it. It's just it's not inspired. It's not something that is going to pull at your heartstrings, but it's kind of like it fills the gap. So I think that's where we're at right now. And that's what a lot of the AI stuff does right now. It's like it's okay, but not great. And so I think that, but I don't know if that'll last forever.
And was this just lyrics or lyrics and music?
I don't think he did the music. I think he did the music, but I think it wrote the lyrics, I believe. Looking at the video, that's what the impression I had.
I'm waiting for them to come out with AI that's going to put the chord progressions together.
I started playing with it. Oh, they're working on it. I mean, there's a bunch of that stuff happening right now. The thing is that one of the things that was excited. There's a couple TikTokers. There's this one English teacher where she like takes pop songs and then she sings about like proper use of English, and she feeds it all in, and it's really funny. And so I got into this little thing of like, I wonder if we get ChatGPT like write me a song about commas, how in the proper use, and it made a song that maybe with the right music would go great. I don't know, but I thought it was a fun exercise for a Saturday afternoon.
Schoolhouse Rock is on Disney Plus. Go ahead, Courtney.
Exactly.
And I wondered, I took a brief look at it as and we can't play it here, but we can look at some stills. If it was Midjourney, if they use Midjourney or some type of AI creative to create this long panning shot that happens.
It could be Midjourney, yeah.
It looks kind of Midjourney-ish, but it has a certain style of cutouts placed in a snowing thing. So it's interesting look to it. I wonder if he used AI to generate the video as well as the lyrics for the song.
Mitchell?
Yeah, I have to ask if AIs understand a parody or comedy or anything funny. So if you said, write a Christmas song in the style of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, would it be completely, messed up as trying to answer that?
Completely is a big word. But I think that it is, it's amazing what you can do in the style of. Like in the style of is the most, I think it's what concerns artists the most is saying, give me a video, give me an image in the style of Pixar, give me the image in the style of Giger, give me an image in the style of Dali, and all of those things. It does a pretty good job at replicating other people's stuff. I think that's what everyone's.
It does funny though. That's the question.
It does. It can do funny. I had to write a romantic comedy between two snails. It was a romantic comedy directed by Michael Bay, and so it was the most classic Saturday morning thing ever. so it was, and I almost wanted to make it because it would be fun but it wasn't a bad concept.
Chris?
You do some weird stuff, Alex. I just wanted to say, as negative as I have been about like basically all things AI, I found a feature in my Schwab trading app that I have on my phone where you can select, they call them themes of things to invest in. Like you can invest in elderly care or, cloud computing and stuff. And one of the things is artificial intelligence. And for the last year, obviously, the return on investment of artificial intelligence is like 59%, which is amazing. So I did buy into a little artificial intelligence investing.
Next question.
Yeah, the question is, did you use artificial intelligence to make that decision? Douglas Carmichael says, what's the most commonly used product for running complex visuals at concerts and events? I've heard the name Disguise mentioned, but I've heard it's also a difficult product to learn.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, for most of the larger events that I've worked on, Disguise has been a pretty common thing that we see, and it is a hard thing to. There's also other ones that are Ventus is another one that we see going by, as well as Arena by Resolume. So those are a couple of the ones that Arena is usually a smaller events that still need to be impressive. And then there's QLab, of course, for a lot of theatrical stuff. I don't see QLab as much on the really, really large shows that I've worked on, but QLab definitely we see in a lot of the medium-sized shows. It's great there as well.
Courtney.
And then, of course, I just want to outline a lot of theater uses Isadora. Isadora runs this whole show. And so Isadora is a very, very powerful program that you can use for that type of stuff as well.
Yeah, WatchOut is another piece of software that's used for playing back stuff on multiple monitors at the same time. But
we call it Lookout.
Look out, because you never know when it's going to crash.
Like it screws up everything. Yeah. Like watch out. We used to make fun of watch out because we'd say, "Oh, there's the watch out operator." And we were like, "There's a watch out operator." And we'd all look at each other going,
"Uh-oh."
Well, and what? So the problem with watch out, by the way, it's $30,000 for one. I don't even know if they make it anymore. QLab does everything that watch out would ever want to do, and without the idiosyncrasies. Anyway, but the biggest problem we had with watch out is it has this space that you can work in, and it always would deliver us videos with a little bit of a black line across the bottom and the top because they didn't get it scaled correctly or whatever. And it was always a problem. And it was just like we had to, every time we saw there was a watch out operator, we'd have to watch for weird little things around the edges because there wasn't a hard scale to it. It wasn't like delivered to the screen. They had to scale it to that screen. And it was kind of a disaster. And we finally, we used the typical, kind of side comments, shame and ridicule of side comments to slowly drive watch out of our apps, out of our stuff. Because when something went wrong, we would of course show our partner that it was wrong and tell them why, because we're using watch out. So it only took us a couple of shows to get rid of it.
I think Alex's deep-seated hate of watch out runs the fact that it only runs on Windows.
I didn't even know that, to be honest with you. I don't know anything about that software other than it kept on sending me bad signals. Like I actually thought it was on the Mac. One of the nice things about it was
one more thing into the box.
Yeah, there you go.
Next question.
Robert Shoji in Los Angeles says, I'm looking for a Samsung SSD T5 replacement. Any recommendations?
Mitchell?
Robert, take a look at the OWC line. They have a lot of interesting products. The Envoy may be the one for you. It's what's neat is to be able to record your video and just unplug it, plug it into your edit bay, and have that same device doing the edits. Kind of a neat way.
Alex?
Yeah, the only thing that's hard is with the T5 is the form factor if you're trying to put it into a camera body, because a lot of these Ectos, the small rig stuff had a place where you could slide that in. So that's the only thing we're having trouble with. But otherwise, the OWC stuff looks really good. And I still build my own from NVMEs, but I'm looking at some of the OWC stuff as a solution.
Next question.
From Brett Ballou in Appleton, Wisconsin. He says, is the Flipper Zero the perfect stocking stuffer? Dubbed the multi-tool device for geeks. It can hack radio protocols, debug hardware, and has a neat interface. And he has a link to it.
Are you there? Are you there, CJ? Can't hear you. Can't hear you, CJ.
CJ broke his computer.
I'll jump in. I'll jump in real quick. Well, I know that I'd be pretty happy if I got it. I'll just let you know. If you want to send me one of these, I'm there. I would definitely play with it. Like it does look like a multi-device tool.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Sorry, I was trying to look it up. I have seen the Flipper Zero demonstrated by a lot of people. It is a hacking tool because it has radios in it and receives a lot of the stuff that is used for remote car. It's used in capturing car remotes and things like that, doing a lot of nefarious stuff. And if the police catch you with that on it and you get prosecuted for breaking into someone's car or something, having hacker tools like that or burglary tools like that can lengthen your sentence. So be aware that it could be considered a burglary tool or hacker tool.
We bought a handful of these just for testing, and I was kind of shocked at how easy it was to take like a fob that you would use for just to open a door and just clone it onto a $20 little HID card that you buy off of the internet. I've lost a little bit of faith in access control systems as a result of this, and the next time I spec one out, I'm going to want to, I think Alex has it up there if you want to show it. We've got a little bit more thought in terms of rolling codes and security and things like that. If you go onto the Discord for the Flipper, you can see a whole section of, hey, this guy he's making the Walgreens paging system say that there's a cleanup on aisle 4. Spoofing the car keys is a little bit harder, but I think the way that they're getting away with this is when they ship them to your home, it doesn't do anything, but it looks like a little Tamagotchi game on that screen, and you feed this dolphin. And then you unlock all of the hacking ability when you put in a micro SD card that you provide and then flash the firmware onto it. And then you get into the menu of let me scan for weather stations and let me see what local bands are around for RFID and NFC. I even was able to put it on the back of one of my dog's neck where they have that little microchip if you lose your pet. And it said, hey, this is the manufacturer of the microchip and here's the code. And then all of a sudden off they go. And we're able to look her up. So it's a pretty cool device. I've been having a lot of fun with it. Next question.
Next question comes in from Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. He says, the last 2 weeks we had our laptop do an auto restart in the middle of a broadcast for a system error. Auto updates were disabled. Lenovo OBS says, I've done 100 programs without an issue.
I'm not sure. I've got the OBS over on Mac, but not so much on Windows. Looks like Courtney's got something to say, though. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, an auto restart can be, could come from a Windows update, but if you set your Windows update to don't, ask me before you restart, it should always ask you before it restarts, or you set your active hours. So you always want to make sure that when you're doing a show that it lies within your active hours, so it won't try and restart on its own without asking you while you're in the middle of a show, if it has anything to do with Windows Update. If it's not Windows Update, it could be just a soft error that happens in your memory, or it could be a hard memory error that can cause a reboot of the computer, a hard restart. So it could be just some piece of software, OBS or something else that you were running on the machine, just had an error, and it sent the processor off to Never Never Land, and its solution for that is to reboot. So that could be what happened. If you never have this problem before and you were careful to set Windows Auto Update to be disabled during your show, or postponed at least for 7 days, is what you can set it to. So it won't even start downloading stuff in the background. Make sure you do all of those things. Then you shouldn't run into this problem very much. Another thing to look for, if it's a laptop, sometimes there's software that's installed on a laptop, like MSI, I know, puts the MSI manager or something. Lenovo has their own manager for managing the firmware of the laptop. And a lot of times, if there's a critical security flaw that is based in the firmware of the laptop, they will push out an update, and if you have those running, it may do a forced reboot and update of your firmware, which will take a long time to come back alive again. So if it went away and took a long time to restart, it's probably doing a firmware update of the laptop's motherboard or BIOS. So that's one thing to watch out for. I always uninstall all of those automatic updates and system monitors for the laptop or the computer, and I always uninstall that stuff before I do a show.
Samuel?
Yeah, the one thing I would ask is if does it boot off in a normal way, like shut down, or is it does it just cut out and then restart? I've had some issues, not on a laptop but on a PC. And it turned out to be the power supply the power supply would cut out sometimes, and it was when you run a benchmark or something, then it would just cut out. But then it went black and then restarted.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Sam Reed in Maine. Says, thanks for reassuring me regarding the Wacom intros. Wacom. I'll never get it right. Wacom Intuos Mac compatibility. You mentioned iPad. I've never had one. As someone brand new to working with graphics with a tool like this, would you recommend a unitasker, Wacom for graphics, or a multitasker like the iPad?
If you're just getting into it, it would behoove you to go to a store that has one of these Wacom tablets on display where you can actually, now I don't know if up in Maine there's going to be a lot of places to see something like that, but if you can get your hands on one, or you could pull an Alex and order it from Amazon and then return it, see how much you like the actual drawing on the pad with the pen that you get, if that's a big difference to you. What I really like, though, is when you have an iPad, you can do most of what you're going to do with that Wacom, but if you don't end up liking that workflow, you still have an iPad that can be doing a lot of other things. So that would be my only my decision tree there would be, how much am I going to use it for this particular task? That is it going to merit buying a standalone device, versus if I'm still iffy on whether I'm going to get into it or not, maybe the iPad is a good middle ground. Next question.
Next question comes from, and maybe our last question, Robert Shoji here in Los Angeles says, for under $1,000, what key light or softbox would you recommend for indoor interviews?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I can give you an example of over $1,000, which is up there. My key light is a light panel. And then over here is the one I'm recommending you go with, the NAND light. It's like $200, $300. What's unique about it is that it has a soft light function where the lights are on the edges and reflect back into the device before it comes out. So you get a nice soft light from this direction from that. So it's NAND light, and highly recommend them. Good price.
The other thing that I'll mention in terms of budget is what I did in here is I have 3 of the newer 1200 RGB lights, which are nice because you can control them from your phone. And then I put those about 2 feet back from a 5x6 PVC frame with just a $20 piece of photography diffusion fabric, 2 layers on it. And so that whole setup probably is going to cost $600 or $700, but you're going to have a nice, great big light source that's going to be very flattering from a shadow perspective, and you're not breaking the bank. But okay. Hey, thanks again for a wonderful Saturday, everyone. Thanks to the panel for the invaluable knowledge, insights. Had a lot of fun today. We're also very grateful for the production team working behind the scenes to make this show possible 7 days a week. And also thank you to the producers. We appreciate every question that you submit. You're the heartbeat of the show. We did have time to get to all the questions today, so that's really exciting. I know the last 2 weeks we ran out of time at the end. And just one more note, a reminder, if you're interested in volunteering, so if you're interested in working behind the scenes, not necessarily on the panel, but the people who are cutting the show, the people who are helping liaison the panelists into the stage when they get here, the people who are organizing some of the administrative and communication stuff on the back end, there's loads of opportunity to volunteer. And if you're interested, the new volunteer meeting starts just at the top of the hour. So check into Discord for a Zoom link to that for that meeting. Yes, for the Slaloc Traversal today, we traveled 77,000 miles. That's 124,000 kilometers. And that is more than 609 million bananas for scale. Thanks, everybody. Let's jump into After Hours.
That banana joke just doesn't get old, does it?
It's a
I've got a
slippery
bunch
slope, I tell you.
It's just a lovely bunch of bananas.
Or coconuts.
CJ, good job.
Yep.
Yeah,
You are definitely on
there.
the fast track to being
getting
the
there.
host with the most.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I do.
We almost had an explosion today, though. I knocked over a can of water on my desk, and it was 1 inch away from an open outlet.
Was that
Sounds like a bounty
shenanigans I heard
commercial.
in the background?
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you'll note that that brick is not fireproof behind you. It's made out of plastic.
Probably something, if you burn it, it's going to do something to your brain cells. Bye-bye. See y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, Samuel.